The big story tonight, outgoing D.C. Attorney General Karl Racine filing a civil lawsuit against the Washington Commanders, owner Dan Snyder, the NFL, and Commissioner Roger Goodell, claiming that they colluded to deceive district residents during a probe into workplace misconduct. Joining me right now, legal expert Seth Berenzweig. Thank you so much for being here, Seth.
My pleasure.
This was big news today, and of course the representatives for the NFL, representatives for Dan Snyder, are saying, hey, this has no basis, no truth. In fact, they are willing to defend the organization by taking this to court. But how consequential could that be if they actually took this to court?
Well, I think that it will be very consequential because the allegations are very serious, and although they're demonstrating an indication of being upbeat about the case, the allegations are extremely serious. This is the latest legal shoe that has really dropped out of the storm clouds on the head of the Washington Commanders and Dan Snyder. It's a very serious lawsuit based in the D.C. Superior Court, and it is basically in two parts. In the first part, it focuses on Dan Snyder and a highly toxic sexualized work environment.
Sure.
It goes through a lot of very lurid allegations, including allegations of prostitutes at parties and mishandling and mistreatment of the cheerleaders. And then the star of the second part of the complaint is Roger Goodell, who allegedly engaged in some kind of a vast conspiracy and cover-up to try to really throw these allegations under the rug. And if these allegations move forward, which it looks like it will in court, it's really going to be a huge headache for both the NFL and the Commanders.
So this lawsuit really details, we're talking about payoffs, intimidation tactics by the Snyder campaign to allegedly obstruct this investigation. And there's so much that can come from this. It'll be interesting because if they are taking this to court, that means Dan Snyder would have to go under oath, right? Roger Goodell and potentially others?
That's right. Roger Goodell's had a very bad day because he is now in the unenviable position of being a co-defendant with Dan Snyder, despite the fact that the league really wants to get Dan Snyder out as an owner. So what you have here is a complaint against the D.C. Consumer Protection Act. Although from a legal standpoint, I think the claim is a little bit of a stretch, I think that context is key. This is a very serious lawsuit that is really existing within the context of several lawsuits, several investigations. You have investigations going with the attorney generals in Virginia, Washington, Maryland. You have a newly disclosed and announced criminal investigation in the Eastern District of Virginia in the United States Attorney's Office. You have congressional investigations. So it's really just a deluge of legal bad news. And right now, this is really the last thing that the Commanders need, especially as they try to turn their season around. So it's going to be very difficult, and the NFL really is going to have a real hot potato on its hands because this isn't going anywhere. I do believe that they'll probably file a motion to dismiss because the legal framework for the case is shaky, but nevertheless, it is really a landmark case with extremely serious allegations.
Absolutely, and Ron Rivera was saying yes. With everything going on, they're trying to stay focused on their game playing. But in this lawsuit, they were saying that the victims are the residents of D.C. because Attorney General Racine was saying this was all about profit, all about making the image of the team look good. And so they were colluding, allegedly, to downplay a lot of these allegations, allegations of payoffs. But really, what should the fans be taking from this? Because this is pretty big stuff that they're alleging right now against their team, the team owner, which we knew, as you were mentioning, they were already under the spotlight.
Well, the allegations under the Consumer Protection Act, the core of it is that there are purposefully deceitful and misleading activities to try to generate business profit. That's really the essence of it. This is a landmark case because it's extremely rare for this kind of a theory to be pushed against a professional sports organization. But the reality is this. I think that this is going to create yet another headache within the context of civil investigations, criminal investigations, congressional investigations, and this is really going to ultimately create heat under the seat for Dan Snyder to push out and really look for a sale of the team. That's exactly what the NFL wants. The owner of the Colts and others have made it very clear that they believe that they have the votes. And if you look at it from Snyder's perspective, it's really interesting because on the one hand, he has a lot of negatives and a lot of serious legal exposure. But if he sells the team, he's going to sell it for over $6 billion. The Denver Broncos sold last year for under $5 billion. So the cost-benefit analysis for him is just shocking, and it'll be very interesting to see whether and how fast the team sells.
So I guess the big question is, where do we go from here? Obviously the team, Dan Snyder, denying these allegations. So legally, what happens going after here? And does selling the team solve all these problems?
Well, it won't, because the allegations attached to the team and for wrongdoing in the past, although I think, frankly, if and when the team sells, they'll probably settle out of court. But what's going to happen next is that you have the complaint and it's going to get served, and the defendants will almost certainly file what's called a motion to dismiss. And their argument is going to say, look, no matter what the allegations are, as a matter of fact, this is going to fail as a matter of law. This is not what the D.C. Consumer Protection Act is meant for. It's meant to protect consumers who buy software and who buy cars and things like that. It's not supposed to affect potentially fans who are getting duped regarding an investigation. And the other thing is, do we really have shock in the District of Columbia as to whether or not there are issues with regard to the Redskins and the Commanders? This team has been beaten down more than a rented mule. So there's going to be a legal fight, and it's probably going to occur in the court with motions to dismiss within the next 6 weeks or so.
It'll be interesting to see how fans, kind of react to this as they're hearing all of these new allegations. Seth, thank you so much for your expertise tonight.
You bet.
Thanks for joining us.